Hello, my name is Dan Skipow, and this is the Top 5 Weekly, where myself and a guest, or sometimes multiple guests, we discuss a topic based on what movies are out in theaters. And this week it is a interesting topic. It's live action animation amalgamations. If you don't know what amalgamations, it's combining two things, mashing them up, and in this case, it's live action and animation. And obviously, I can't do this show by myself. So my guest this evening is a someone that has been wanting to come on for a while, and I haven't had on yet. And his name is Tony Heald. Tony, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. What do you think about this topic? I mean, you think about a topic like this, and you say, "Wow, there have been a lot of these movies where they mash up live action and animation."
It's a very interesting one because it's one of those ones where you automatically go, "Oh yeah, I can think of like three off the top of my head that do it in the best way that and everyone remembers." But there's so once you actually go into it, there's so many times where it's just like animation has been used so wonderfully that where it just works so perfectly for the film, and it's just like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And obviously, we always do these topics because of the movie that's out in theaters, and that's this week is Tom and Jerry, a beloved animation when I was a child. I'm a little bit older than you. Do you have any recollection of Tom and Jerry?
Yeah, absolutely. They were just a key part of Cartoon Network when I was growing up. They were always on like in between the bigger shows. So I've seen quite a ton of them. And it's like, and this movie, whilst it's not going to be out here for another like 5 months because dear God, everything is fucked. It's going to be interesting. It's like, is it going to be better than the '92 Richard Kind one? I'm not sure, but Richard Kind, to be fair, is God.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, the trailers look good. So we'll see how good it is. We're recording this before Tom and Jerry comes out, but it's coming out any day now. So let's just we'll just we'll get rid of the verisimilitude there and say that we're recording beforehand. So let's stop mincing words here and let's get into it. And I always let my guests go first, and so you are the guest, Tony. What is your number 5?
Okay, so my number five is a weird one because it's an animated film that uses live action in a way that probably most people don't realize because it's the first animated film anyone really thinks of, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Huh.
Because
Interesting.
if you ever noticed this, is the actual first scene, the story, the actual book for when it opens is actually live action. So it's the way that Disney in the '30s was able to go, okay, so I'm going to use the live action. I'm going to use this book to bring this idea of fairy tale to life, and actually, and bring that's the way he got the audience into going, okay, I'm going to accept this animation as reality at this moment because of the way they use it. It's really interesting if you actually go and look at it for that. And it's just, and it's one of those things as well. It's like if you go, what's the first animated film? Snow White comes to mind automatically, and it's just like it's also it's that one where it's just like hey, Disney was using this whole amalgamation trick from the very start.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I've seen Snow White, and I just have not. I guess I just didn't pay enough attention to realize that it had live action segments in it.
Yeah, so it's that it's only really the first like 2 minutes, but the importance of that 2 minutes in especially back in that day, time and place where to really like because it was the first time a live feature length animation film was ever done. So this was like having the very first shot to be a live action shot was just a very important part of the process, and it's just perfectly well done.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. It's neat to learn something new. I did not know that at all. All right, my number 5 is when I was a kid, there was a comedian that I used to watch all his movies back when he obviously was on a sitcom that I used to watch called Three's Company, but he was a comedic actor in the vein of like Jerry Lewis back in the 50s and 60s. And one I always just gravitated towards when I was a kid, obviously it came out way before I was alive, was called The Incredible Mr. Limpet. The Incredible Mr. Limpet is a movie where a guy played by Don Knotts falls off a ship and when he falls into the ocean, he turns into a fish,
Yeah.
and and that's when the animation starts, and it's just a really sweet kind of story about this guy trying to find himself as a fish. You know, it takes him falling off into the ocean and turning into a fish to kind of figure out his whole place in life and his place in society. And it's a comedy, and it's got some slapstick elements and some, but the animation's neat for the time. And
Mm.
of course, if it wasn't Don Knotts, it wouldn't be anything, because this guy is just one of the comedic geniuses of the last couple hundred years, I mean, or 150 years, I guess. Are you familiar with The Incredible Mr. Limpet by any chance?
I've heard of it. So this came out in this early 60s, like 1964. So this was there's probably some other animated live action films that we're going to talk about from the same time period. So how would you say does it stand up to the ones like the more prevalent ones, if we can imagine the Disney one that we're skirting
Well, I
around?
mean, the Disney ones, obviously, like you said, are more famous. A lot of more people are going to recognize those. But this is just one of those ones that just, it caught me as a child because I love Don Knotts so much. And I just love the fact that this guy's having a tough life, and things aren't going good for him, and then he falls off the ship and into the ocean. He turns into a fish, and he has to kind of gravitate through the story and find the people he knows and say, hey, I'm a fish, and they have to try to help him out and stuff like that. I mean, I like it a lot. That's why I set my 5, but I completely understand where other people say, oh, I never heard of The Incredible Mr.
Yeah.
Limpet. What the heck is this? It's just because I've seen so many films, and that's part of my background. When I was a kid, I watched tons and tons of black and white old movies, and that kind of helped prepare me as I went along. So yeah, The Incredible Mr. Limpet at number 5. All right, so let's go to your number 4.
Okay, for my number 4, I'm gonna go. So you can tell by my accent, I'm British. So, and there's this very steady diet of things that we have from early childhood for watching. Some of them, like Carry On series and all that jazz, doesn't really get moved over to the States. However, the Monty Python franchise, the Monty Python crew, have always been able to cross that cross ocean, I should say. And Life of Brian really does what the Flying Circus did perfectly in those random, bizarre Terry Gilliam animation scenes just thrown in just to make the movie just even better. So, like Monty Python, Life of Brian, the animated sequence when Brian gets taken into space, it's just this bizarre few minutes of just like, what the hell is Terry Gilliam? Please get off the drugs. And it just works so perfectly, and just like it's almost like a break in the film, which gives it that a little bit more of the gravitas, because it kind of does make it more feel like one of the like an intermission for like the Ten Commandments back in the old epic days of cinema.
Yeah, no, Terry Gilliam, boy, he really knows how to give you a mind f, if you know what I mean, with his
Ever so
film.
slightly.
And so, but he's done so many different kinds of things too. I mean, it's not like the same exact thing. It's just kind of, they're just all like weird and wild and out there. And you're right about the Life of Brian. This was a kind of a weird segment within that movie. You don't really expect that when you're watching. You're like, oh, okay, here we go. We're gonna go animation now.
Well, take a line from Monty Python, and now for something completely different. Is just living up to the ethos of what Monty Python was. Just like, because like the Holy Grail was more of like a bunch of sketches put together. Life of Brian was the first time they ever really tried to do like, all right, this is a whole script, this is a one story, we're following one person, and like this was just like for our fans that did that love Flying Circus, here's Gilliam's work for a few minutes, just to give you that reminder of just who we are as comedians.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. All right, so that is The Life of Brian is your number 4. My number 4 is a movie where Brad Pitt plays a detective, and he ends up getting involved with this in this world where he he has this woman that he ends up getting involved with, and she's animated, and he ends up getting sucked into this world called Cool World,
Oh.
and he has to do this detective story as an animated character, as an animated detective and stuff. And it's got like a film noir feel to it, a LA Confidential type of feel to it. It's Kim Basinger plays the other character in the film, and obviously, like I said, Brad Pitt. I'll tell you what, when I watched this, I was like, man, the animation is really cool. I really I like where they're going as far as this film noir, this kind of detective feel to it. And I mean, was it the best movie in the world? No, but it was something different when it came out, and I kind of really enjoyed it. So, have you ever seen Cool World?
I've not seen Cool World, but I have seen some of Ralph Bakshi's other work. So he's a very interesting director. He was the person that did like Wizards, Fritz the Cat, stuff like that. So hearing him go into the live action scene that sounds interesting as hell. Like he's one of those people that was just like, yeah, you're gonna make this weird, aren't you, mate?
Yeah, I mean, as a film noir fan and a comic book fan and that sort of stuff, I really resonated with it, because it had that kind of like femme fatale kind of thing going on with it, with the Kim Basinger character, and then Brad Pitt and her were great together, I mean, so I kind of really.
So I have it up on Wikipedia. I don't want to make you feel old. I was 8 days old when this movie came out.
8 days old. Yeah,
I was
no.
8 days old. Came out July 10th, 1992. That is.
Yeah, well, I know I've been around a long time. I've been watching movies, Tony, for 40 years.
Fair.
So that's quite a long time. And, the movies I watched when I was a kid were like movies that came out in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Yeah. And I was like binge watching all these old classics. So I kind of have a little bit of a thing going on with all the movies that I've watched over the years. I have a real appreciation for older black and white and so forth. All right, so Cool World was my number 4. Let's move on to your number 3.
Okay, so I feel like the top 3 are kind of obvious. There's those 3 big ones that you think of. So it's really which way you're going to order them. For me, this one I'm going to put in as third because the other 2 do a better job of mixing the 2 to get 2 worlds of animation and live action together. Whereas this one, mainly because of the time period it came out in, I think it was a bit more. It suffers from that. So my number 3 would be Mary Poppins.
All right, we're gonna hold off on that.
Okay.
Gonna hold off on that. All right, so my number 3. I don't know if we have the same number 3 or not, or top 3 or not. But my number 3 is a movie that came out very recently in 2016, where it's a remake of a completely animated film, but in this version, there's one live action character, and his name is Mowgli. And everybody else in the movie is animated. And it has a unbelievable cast. I mean, Scarlett Johansson, Ben Kingsley, Chiwetel Ejiofor. I mean, I can't even name everybody that's in it. Maybe you could help me name all the people if you're looking at the IMDb. I don't know. But this is from Jon Favreau. He had previously done before this. He had done Iron Man 2 leading up to this. So he had a relationship with Disney, and he decided to do this. He's got this new, I guess he calls it stagecraft, where the live action character is on a stage and they're just filming him, but then they overlay him with all the animation behind him, or the computer graphics. In future movies, it's computer graphics and so forth. And I mean, I think it's an incredible technology, if you ask me, because it's really revolutionized special effects in films and so forth. But Bill Murray was Baloo the bear.
Yeah, the Pete and the
Christopher
Young Girl.
Walken was King Louie, the orangutan. I'm just thinking in my head all the people that were in it. And, I freaking love this movie. I was shocked how good this was. And I know you might not like it as much as the first one, or you might, I don't know.
Mm.
But what's your thoughts on the Jungle Book from 2016?
So I'm quite positive on the live action remakes. Like I've gone on record saying that the Guy Ritchie's Aladdin probably is better than the original Aladdin. But for the Jungle Book, there was just something missing about it. There's just like this spark that was just not there. That it just felt that the CGI and didn't work with the live action. Just something. It was just felt like there was like this uncanny valley type of deal that was just missing. And it's like I have the post for Lion King up behind me, ironically, which kind of had the same deal of just like it looked too real, but you knew it obviously wasn't real, and it just took me out of the picture for a while. It's like
Oh,
at least with it felt if they like, and also when you have like Mowgli that came out about a year or
oh,
two
no.
later, I
Yeah.
feel that I'm the opposite. I thought it was quite well done. I felt like Andy Serkis did a really fantastic job with it.
Wow. Wow, that's so weird. That's weird that we think differently on that, because I just didn't like the animation at all on Mowgli, and I love the animation on the Jungle Book. I thought like Kaa the snake and the way she moved, and
Mm,
just the way the characters moved, I just thought was effortless and seamless and congruous to Mowgli in there. But that's just, obviously to each his own, I guess.
oh
But
yeah.
yeah, so obviously you and I probably don't have the same three, but I
Yeah.
I like this version of the Jungle Book, so that's why I had it at number three. We skipped your number three because we're not going to talk about that just yet.
Fair enough.
Let's move on to your number two.
Okay, so this is the greatest advert in the history of the universe because it took a person that was selling shoes and a cartoon character and made millions at the box office to the point where they've got a remake coming out this year. Space Jam is just it. Space Jam feels like a Michael Jordan is in the world of the Looney Tunes. That film just everything's so perfectly well. It's remarkable how well that movie looks and feels. Is it the greatest film in the world? No, there's many plot points. What the hell does Larry Bird and Bill Murray do once they see Michael Jordan get dragged down a golf hole, for example? But it just the way that it looks and there's the nostalgic feel about it just gets me every time. It's just one of those films where I'm very well aware I'm wearing rose-tinted glasses when I watch it, and I don't care because I love it. The music's great. Michael Jordan, even though I don't follow basketball, is amazing in it, and it's the Looney Tunes. What more can you ask for?
Yeah. So I will tell you, I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I am not a fan of this movie.
Mm,
Um, I just don't like the overall story, the overall feel of the movie. I was a huge basketball fan at that time in my life.
yeah,
I'm a huge Larry Bird fan, and it wasn't something that gravitated towards me. Maybe it's because I started getting to the fact where I was turning into an adult, and things like this were just immature to me, and I didn't, maybe I needed to be 8, 9, 7, 10, whatever it is. Instead, I was probably 18, 19, 20, whatever it was at the time. And I didn't like the animation that much. And I'm not a fan of Michael Jordan at all. I mean, granted, he's probably the greatest athlete of all time. But I just was never a fan of him. So, and this new version with LeBron James, I'm not going to be I'm going to say it right now. I'm not going to be really enthused about that one either, because I'm not a fan of LeBron James. So I'm not a fan of Michael Jordan, and I'm not a fan of LeBron James. So these movies don't get me to be interested in, because they're starring people that I'm not a fan of. I don't like them that much. But Larry Bird was in it. I know they had Charles Barkley and all this
yeah.
stuff. And it is the Looney Tunes. So I understand how a lot of people grew up with Space Jam. As you know, I hear it sometimes on the radio in my work when I'm working, and you have nostalgia towards the song and so forth.
Hmm.
But it just wasn't my cup of tea. That's why it didn't make my list.
I,
But I understand people your age. This is
well,
something that's a big
I also
deal.
think as I also think as well that it's one of these films that perfectly manages to mix the live action and animation well, because it does feel that, like, especially in the 90s when it wasn't really done that well. It just like somehow they were just able to make it where it just seemed like too much is a real place. Michael Jordan is in that area, stuff like that, and it's like even if you go back and watch it, there's not, like, the script is absolute janky as hell, but it's you can watch the film and just go, okay, so the graphics still look up to par. This came out if the movie that comes out this year has the same style and look of this one, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I mean, but yeah. So I know that's a hot take, me, because a lot of people love Space Jam.
Mm.
So people, especially people your age, they grew up on it, and
Oh yeah.
I just felt maybe I was just too of an adult for Space Jam.
Yeah.
The adult in me said, nah, this isn't us. This isn't our cup of tea. So I just guess I forced my brain and my body to not be a fan of that movie. But all right, so my number two was your number three, and that is Mary Poppins. Um, Obviously, Mary Poppins is an iconic Disney film with live action characters, Julie Andrews, Dick Van Dyke, and I mean, some iconic songs, Super Fragilistic, Expialidocious.
Hmm.
I can't think of all the songs, but
Spoonful of sugar, let's go fly
yeah,
kite.
yeah. I was just gonna say Spoonful of Sugar, but I mean, as a kid, this is one of those things that just like I just lit up every time I watched it. It was one of those movies that you when it was on, you're like, oh, I'm watching Mary Poppins because it's great, and you can sing
Hmm.
along and you can dance and have fun, and it's a lighthearted kind of movie. And so this is one that I really did enjoy growing up, and my brothers and sister, we all watch it together. It was one of those family movies when it came on. You're like, yeah, Mary Poppins, we can watch this, and you didn't change the channel or whatever. But I know you had it at your number three, so
Yeah.
tell me what made it great for you.
So it's one of those films that is just timeless in the fact that, like, I work with early education, so I work with kids under 5 years of age. So, and they watch Mary Poppins still to this day, and they still fall in love with it. They do all that. It's like it even works better than Mary Poppins Returns somehow. It's like the music is well done, and it's just like, and there is parts in it that do drag. The whole floating uncle scene is like 20 minutes long, and it's just like that could have been cut, and a few of the dance scenes could have been thrown away. But there's just this wonder to it that is amazing, and as I said, the amalgamation of the two didn't really work as well as other films have done it in the future. But obviously, that's just because of time constraints and of the being in the 60s, and I like but when they do live action stuff, it does look beautiful. It looks like the classic, like, not Chaucer. I can't remember the name of the artist. But Elliot and stuff like that. Those types of painters, just their type of work of like the classic 18th century art, which really works well for the time period.
Yeah, it really did fit in the time period, and just to touch on what you said, the new one, with good performances by Lin Manuel Miranda and Emily Blunt, the songs just weren't catchy enough for me.
Hmm.
Where those songs in the first one are just so freaking catchy. Once you start watching it, you're singing these songs when you're leaving the theater. You're singing them at home. You're singing them all the time when you're watching this movie. These new songs just aren't that catchy to me.
Absolutely. He's like they just it's one of those ones where, like, you probably should have listened to P.L. Travers and not touching it, just because no one was ever gonna live up to the remake, to the original. Also, the artist I was thinking of, T.S. Lowry. T.S. Lowry. All the art, I think that's who they based off the artwork from. It looks absolutely stunning and similar to his work.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had Mary Poppins at 3, and I had Mary Poppins at 2. Before we get to our number ones, and we're moving through this really quick, I've noticed it's faster than normal. We're gonna get some honorable mentions in here, and I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, so a few honorable mentions. So I grew up almost grommet there, so stop motion animation is always a big thing for me. So Beetlejuice and Evil Dead, the way they use stop motion animation works absolutely beautifully. And then let's go through the list quickly. Anchors Away is actually a really interesting one as well. It has this, speaking of Tom and Jerry, it has a scene of Jerry dancing with, who the hell does he dance with? Is it Frank Sinatra or Gene Kelly? It's Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly. So this dancing between those two, which is kind of similar to what you see with Dick Van Dyke and the Penguins, but it was done 20 years earlier. So it's really interesting. If you can go find that, go watch it, because it's just the way that George Sidney was able to direct that worked really well. And yeah, that's what I had as me honorable mentions. Like obviously, like, and then Monty Python, like Holy Grail, did a few animated things as well. So if you, it's pretty much the same as Life of Brian.
Yeah. I have the remake of 101 Dalmatians with Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil, and obviously we're getting a another version of that this June with Emma Stone as Cruella de Vil. Yogi Bear, which you can't go wrong.
True.
Yeah, Yogi Bear was really kind of a fun one. Another classic from Disney, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks with Angela Lansbury. Am I correct? Angela Lansbury, isn't that?
Yeah, Bed Knobs, Broomsticks. Yeah. What's
Yeah.
that got to do with my knob? The greatest line in history of cinema.
Yeah. Another one, when I was a kid, I really, I mean, a teenager. I was a teenager, maybe a little bit older than a teenager. Stuart Little. I liked Stuart. They did a sequel that didn't do as well, but I guess it kind of lost the luster the Stuart Little did after the first Stuart Little. It was kind of a smart mouse, walking, talking smart mouse, so forth. Garfield the movie. Garfield was another one where I grew up with Garfield as a kid, and then to see him get his own movie and do a lot of the similar things that he did when he was an animated character. Now he gets his own movie, Garfield the movie. A movie I didn't know about for a while, but I finally got it and I watched it. It was called The Little Prince. That was really good. You got something to say about The Little Prince?
The Little Prince I've always heard The Little Prince is always like as the ultimate story thing for small children. I've never actually gotten around to watching it, or like, but I've heard this like the novella as well is just like the perfect like for young children.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And then another one that Disney did that was really good that did get a remake as well a couple years ago, Pete's Dragon, which I really enjoyed Pete's Dragon on the level of some of the ones on my list. I really enjoyed Pete's Dragon. Pete's Dragon just barely missed my list. So those are some. I mean, in the list. Go ahead.
Here we go. I got one more that never really gets talked about, but it does this wonderfully, and it's probably one of Ewan McGregor's finest hours as an actor in the Christopher Robin film from 2018. It's one of those ones where on paper it should look terrible. It's like, oh, Winnie the Pooh, but it's old Christopher Robin. It's not gonna work. Like Ewan McGregor, I've got the higher ground now. Ha ha ha. But somehow like the relationship that he has with the animals feels legitimate, and it's so beautifully well done. Maybe the plot with his family isn't as well done as the bear, but to be fair, who gives a shit about the family? You want the bear.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, nobody cares about the family. We want to see the character. We want to see Tigger. We want to see Winnie the Pooh. We want to see Eeyore. We want to see Piglet. those are the characters we want to see, and they were very well done. I might add, you're absolutely right. How that they had like a shade to them, which added to the kind of feel of the world that they were in. You know, it kind of fit in with the world that they were in, and that's that kind of animation really melded itself well with the live action. You're right.
Yeah,
And then the other
absolutely.
two, go ahead.
They almost had like they almost felt like better puppet Muppets than the Muppets used to use. In
Yeah.
that way, the way that they look and everything, and it's just, but they were able to do so much more, obviously, because it's CGI. But it's like you're just like you have to take your hat off to Ewan McGregor for that film, just like because it's like how do you go from like the stuff that you've been doing in that time period to doing, oh yeah, I'm gonna do a really good performance in this movie that no one's gonna care about.
Yeah, it's tough sometimes to be to be the live action person in a movie with animated characters. We'll see what happens with Tom and Jerry, with Chloe Grace Moretz and Michael
Yep.
Pena. We'll see what happens with them too. All right, so needless to say, let's get to our number one. It's probably the same number one. We both more than likely have the same number one, but you're the guest. You go first. What is your number one, Tony?
So this has to be the standard bearer for CGI live action crossover. It's one that it pretty much created the genre. Obviously, there's like Mary Poppins stuff beforehand, but the ones that really like made it a thing and like actually went to like all the other companies going, oh yeah, you can actually do this stuff now, and which is where you get Cool World and everything else that comes through it. Who found Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, I freaking love this
Yep.
movie. I mean, Christopher Lloyd. God, now of course his name's going right out my brain.
Bob Hoskin.
Bob Hoskin, who R.I.P. Rest in peace, Bob Hoskin. I mean, they were just so fantastic. Bob Hoskin was he had never done something like this. I mean, he was always a serious guy all the time. He was like, he never did this quirky kind of kooky, crazy character type of thing. And I mean, he just came alive as this character in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And of course, Christopher Lloyd at this point in his career was just on fire. He could do no wrong. He's coming off of Back to the Future and Star Trek and Taxi and just you name it. He was doing all these things, Christopher Lloyd was at the time. And this is probably one of his most iconic characters now, if you think about his career. But the animation, it just had so much depth and reality to it. And they gave these guys like depression, and they gave them like personal problems, the animated characters, and then there was feuds between the different characters and so forth. And it gave a kind of life to the animated characters that you had never seen before,
Yeah, it made that world come to life, and those two performances worked perfectly because they went to completely different ends of the spectrum. Bob Hoskins, like, he's the Long Good Friday guy. He's the guy from Brazil, Mona Lisa. He's very serious. He took this very seriously. As like, I'm an actor. I'm acting with other actors. That's it. I don't care if they're invisible or not. They had a guy that the person that did the voice of Roger Rabbit would actually stand in the lot. So Bob Hoskins had someone to interact with. So that's the way. That's how he did it, and was able to create Eddie Valiant as this wonderful character. Then on the complete other end, it's like Christopher Lloyd just went, I'm going to be a cartoon character come to life, and I'm going to love every second of it. I get to be a villain, and I don't mean just like a noble villain. Just I get to be the twirly mustache, evil. Like I get to be cartoon come to life, and it's like he does it so perfectly. And if you took either of them out, the movie just completely falls apart. And it's also just the imagination of Robert Zemeckis in order to direct it, and like the company. What's it? It's Prop Hunters or something like that on Disney Plus. They did a whole episode on the props of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and it's absolutely fascinating because so much of it had to be like, okay, so we have to have it so that Bob Hoskins has something to interact with. So we have to have handcuffs that will weigh down like as if Roger is connected to them. We have to have like the sticks that move up and down for the waiters so that the animators can work around it. It's so just everything about this movie. It's just like it's one of these ones where it doesn't get the credit that it deserves of being one of the most important movies in cinema because of how much it improved the game. It's almost like it's almost what Star Wars did in the 70s, Who Framed Roger Rabbit did in the 80s, of just being able to just go, okay, here's the toolbox, go do better stuff with it. and it's like, and we've seen now like CGI live action just mixes everything, and it's not. And then also it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit is weirdly like the last of a dying breed in the cinema because it's one of the last times that Mel Blanc actually voiced his iconic characters. So it's this weird passing of the guard moment of like that possibly the Looney Tunes finest hour, even though it's in a Disney film. Mel Blanc got to do that voice for the final time, and it's just like this perfect amalgamation of just like this is everything in one piece.
Yeah, in the film noir aspect of it, once we're going to go to the film noir aspect. You got the detective story aspect, and of course, the iconic character that is Jessica Rabbit. That everybody like that you can make an animated character with that much allure and that much mystery and that much beauty, and people are like, "Wow, she's gorgeous." That tells you that you did a great job when you can do something like that.
Absolutely, it's like Catherine Turner did the voice for it, and it's just like, yeah, you're everything about this character is just sex on legs, and it works perfectly, and it has no reason to because it's an animated film and a Disney one. But it's just like, oh yeah, you're one of the sexiest characters of all time. How?
Yeah, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. All right, so that is the top 5 weekly live action animation amalgamations. Tony, what are your 5 through 1?
Okay, so my 5 through 1. So number 5 was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Number 4, Monty Python and the Life of Brian. Number 3, Mary Poppins. Number 2, Space Jam, and number 1 with a bullet, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
All right, my number 5 is The Incredible Mr. Limpet. Number 4 is Cool World. Number 3 is Jungle Book from 2016. Number 2 was Mary Poppins, and number 1 was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Tony, where can you be found?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way to find me at Feature Presentation Productions on YouTube. We are pretty much every other day, it feels like. We've got something going up every Sunday, FPTL, where we get 4 random players, stick them in a blender, make 2 teams, and have a random trivia match all about movies. Wednesday is Fancy Film Fights, where we take a random film topic and draft it fancy style. So, and then we have Unearthed Bill Cariola, where he does either hidden gems or B movies galore with a guest. That Made Your List with Dave Goodyear, where he gets him as an average film fan gets another average film fan to talk about their love for films, all that stuff, and it's a ton of a plethora of other things going on. So Feature Presentation Productions on YouTube, Featured Press, Featured PRES on Twitter, and yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, and I've been on a couple of Tony's shows, and I recommend them to anybody. Just put your name in, and he might pick you randomly. It's a random pick. He doesn't use any kind of particular way to pick people. They just pick them randomly. So you might get picked one week, you might not get picked one week, whatever. And same thing goes for the other shows. You can always find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Also, I am a film critic in Central Florida. I write for a website called disappointmentmedia.com. Don't at me. I didn't come up with the name. I just write for them. That's disappointmentmedia.com. Also, I write on my own blog, From the Fourth Row, at wordpress.com. So for Tony and myself, good night, everybody.
Peace.